Hey, it's Dan here. I am so glad you could join in this seminar on 4 tips for rehearsing great worship song intros. Of course, this is part of the Essentials in Worship Toolkit series, which is part of the broader Essentials in Worship training material. And I want to welcome you as well. I always like to do that at the front end of these over at danwilt.com. If you sign up for my email list, I'll send you a free download. A great free download, and then regularly I'll send you free downloads, resources, some encouragements for you as a worship leader, for worship teams, devotionals, and more. And I look forward to connecting with you there. So let's dig into 4 tips for rehearsing great worship song intros. So how do we rehearse worship song intros in a band rehearsal? Is there a way to think about this that actually enhances what goes on in the overall worship set? Well, I think there is, and I think taking care of our intros helps us create a better, more fluid story in our worship set that I believe increases engagement, people finding their voice in prayer, in praise, in thankfulness with God in a worship set. And a lot of it can come down to the musical way that we integrate people into a song, that we welcome them. It's hospitality musically, if you will. So having a strong intro to a worship song builds the foundation not only for that song, anticipation, but also for your entire set. A group of songs that are well introduced, well completed, wrapped up, gives a set flow and strength. So here's some 4, I think, pretty foolproof tips to help your team rehearse intros that are effective, that really work. So let's look at these 4 ideas. First, listen to an MP3. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute, or a version of the song. 2, establish your version. 3, let the drummer count in, and I'll explain what I mean by that. I don't always mean the 4 clicks. I mean let the drummer lead into whatever's going to happen there, and then loop until it's solid in the rehearsal. So number 1, listen to an MP3. So however your band hears songs first is important to imprint ideas in the band. I am a big fan of learning the way that someone else does it and has worked it and has orchestrated and fought for it in a recording and has worked it in the context of their set with professional musicians, with people who have really tended to the details of it, so that then you have a better toolkit for doing your own thing, that the decisions you make are intentional rather than sloppy. And I'm just a big fan of bands learning to play it the way another band has arranged it and put it together, the original writer, not because we're trying to simply be copycats forever, but because we're always growing in our chops, and these things build chops. So listen to an MP3. Get the band listening to some MP3 recording of the song or some vibe of it that you like, that could provide that way of introducing the song. I also will sometimes send people a song and say, here's the song, but here's another song that shows the kind of way I want to intro it. So just listen to the intro vibe and feel, and we're going to apply that to the other song. I'm just a big fan of them hearing something first. So the electric guitar player doesn't just go back to those chops that he or she learned because they're their favorite tunes. It's their favorite sound is always to go to this genre. I like to push them in different directions, and I've found it really helps rehearsal a lot. So get an MP3 recording to them. I use worshipteam.com at the time of this recording for all my songs, so that the band can hear them in the keys I'm doing them in, and get a feel for the kind of way I want to intro the song. But I love that they've already heard some things. It gives them a sense of how the recorded intro goes, how similar that intro might be to the one I want to create, which I email them and tell them, we're going to do this a little emptier. It's just going to be piano and violin. And they have a full band doing it, or lots of pads. So just so you know, we're going to mess with this. That all happens before the band even gets to the rehearsal. I like to seed ideas, and it helps give them ideas as we come to the moment. So if you get to the rehearsal, most of the players have not heard the recording. Either play the recording, if that's what you want, it's good review for those that did, or play them something in your instrument that approximates how you want to get into that song in the context of the worship set. It's important for people to get a frame of reference. I've found it's always easier from that foundation to change, to move, to shape things the way that you'd like to do it. Then the second idea is establish your version, the second tip. In other words, talk your band through how you'd like to get into that song, what you think the texture will be as you move into that song, what you think the moment will demand given the placement of that song in the set. There are times I know that a song that is often done in a very big anthemic way that might take 7 minutes, I know I just want to do a piece of that song for about 2 or 3 minutes at the end of our set. I explain that. That means we're going to take that intro, we're going to simplify it, we're going to strip back instruments, we're going to make it a more peaceful intro, and we're only going to do this portion of it. I love to say to worship bands, just aside on arranging, just because the song is done for 7 minutes in the recording does not mean every time you have to do it, you have to do it that exact same way for that long. Let it be an accordion. Let it be telescope. Do a piece of that song, just the chorus, and use that as a moment of transition or as something special or as even an introduction into another song you want to go into. Make these things modular, make them moving parts rather than simply feeling like you always have to do it the way it was done originally. Okay? So is it a straight count in that everyone starts at once? Make it clear. Is it a count in and just your voice and acoustic guitar are heard? Is it a count in and just the pads begin on a keyboard with a light hi-hat? Again, we could get into click tracks. We could get into how a drummer begins a song. Sometimes I will start a song. I like having a click track in my ear to give me the fresh tempo. At the same time, many times I'll pull that click out just so that I can find my way in as a worship leader, get the band in. But I often like to have a drummer, even if they're just tapping us in with a hi-hat and we're in, I love to have something guided by the drummer whose main concern is tempo. My mind and heart can be all sorts of places in the music. So I like to have a drummer giving us a count in. Think about those details before rehearsal so you can confidently bring direction to the band. Then let the drummer count in. Though you don't always have to let the drummer count in, it's a good idea, it's a good default so that you can concentrate on keeping the tempo that they've begun. Then they own the tempo. Some churches will use the tech to have a click track, some won't. I encourage you, your drummer, even if they're doing it on a phone and they're seeing what the tempo is, they're locking into that tempo, let them have that mission if you can, if it's a good default for that song. As the worship leader, you're focused on so many other things, so every drummer should have at very least, a tap tempo metronome app from which they derive and remember tempos. And drummers should be writing down tempos of songs. Should be writing them down so that you know when you're going into that intro the tempo that it's coming in at. Okay, very important. And then I loop it till it's solid in the rehearsal. I'll just take those 4 bars of introduction and we'll just keep doing them over and over until the band feels like, yeah, this is how we get into this song. If you know you're going to have a 4-bar intro, meaning 4 measures, have that drummer count in, then continue to loop those 4 bars over and over. Do that until you think all the band members are secure in what their instruments should be doing, how they're playing together, how they're not playing certain instruments, how they're creating space for one another, fraction principle, etc. In rehearsal, consider turning your mic and your monitor, I do this, to face the band so they can see your eyes and gestures. That way you can watch everyone and communicate verbally and non-verbally if you want a little of this, a little more of that as you continue to loop that section over and over. I love to face the band in rehearsal, so I turn everything around and then I just turn to face the congregation if we're in that facing rows setup. Than during the actual set. But everyone has seen me, felt where I was going. They kind of get it in their bones. And then when it comes the time for the moment, they're in with me. So those are 4 tips that I think can really help you. I'd encourage you to try just at least one idea the next time you meet. When you're rehearsing worship song intros, get them pre-preparing by listening to the song. Establish your version of it. Articulate what you want in rehearsal. Talk about it together till you feel like the band understands what you're after. Then let the drummer count the band in on a regular basis if you can. Keep looping that song intro until it's solid. I am a big fan of topping and tailing a set where I practice how we leave a song and I practice how we get into a song. It's a big deal in rehearsals. Those things get fluid, the songs almost play themselves. So those are some ideas for how to do that. So I'd love to send you a free download. Again, if you go to danwilt.com and you sign up on the email list, you'll get a free download, and then I'll on some regular basis be sending you free resources, free downloads, and I'll let you know about other tools that are coming out as they come out. I'd love to be one of the encouragers in your worship leadership and worship team life. This is also a great place to send your team members to get them on the list, because they'll be encouraged too by some of the devotionals and other materials that come out. So again, I hope this was helpful. 4 tips for rehearsing great worship song intros. So glad you could join in.